So excited to be able to welcome back to the show to talk about the great sport of judo, Mr. Josh Katz. We had him on just before Paris to learn about his journey through his Olympic debut in Rio and then what led to his second appearance in Paris. And now we're about to learn exactly what happened on the ground in Paris. Josh, welcome back to the show. It's a pleasure to speak to you again.
Thank you for having me back. It's been nice. Anytime, Josh, because right now, let's just get this over and done with. You're sitting at home. You've just had some surgery. You've got a bit of time right now. So this is kind of a perfect time to catch you there. Just what's happened since the Olympics? Why have we had to have surgery straight away? You're always injured. This isn't right, Josh. Come on. Had no excuse to miss coming back on the podcast this time. So, I think last time we spoke, I sort of touched on a knee injury I picked up in January, and I sort of knew that surgery was coming eventually. And then came home from Paris, got a scan, saw my doctor, and pretty much the option was if I didn't want to compete at a high level anymore, then I could probably just go without. But wanting to get back to a high level of judo, wanting to sort of go another Olympic cycle, surgery was going to have to happen. So had that done about 5 or 6 days ago. So slowly weaning my way off painkillers at the moment, but they've been helping me a lot the last couple of days, that's for sure.
Does that mean then that you just got to work out a good old Netflix playlist or, some good again, I don't know a good podcast, but I can hook you up with a podcast if you need some listening.
Could recommend one or two, yeah. No, it's been good. A little bit of forced downtime is never too bad. I'm hoping that I'll be able to sort of get back on my feet in the next couple of weeks would be nice, just so I can be a little less reliant on everyone around me, which is as nice as it is to be slaved over. I would like to be able to do a few more things by myself, to be honest, but it's been all right so far.
It's that balance, right? Like everybody likes to be slaved over in some level, but at the same time, you also don't want to feel like a child. You want to be able to, get up and get some eggs or something like that, right? Every now and then.
Food always tastes better when someone else cooked it for you, but
that is true.
Yeah, it is a little bit tough when nobody's around. Then times get tough.
Very, very, very true. Obviously, we spoke just before for Paris and sort of that journey that led to your second Olympics, everything that you had overcome, obviously, to get to that. And then we get to Paris and ultimately, you're basically one of the first athletes to compete. And ultimately, you're eliminated pretty much straight away, and it's kind of Olympics are done with and everything so quickly. We'll touch on everything that happened there, but how have you been mentally? How have you found sort of the last few weeks or month and a half or so since all of this has happened to kind of reflect on your Olympic journey basically being over before it even began?
Yeah, for a little bit of context, I competed the first day of the Olympics, so the day after the opening ceremony. So I think some of the team sports had already started, but I don't think any were eliminated yet. And I competed the very first match of the judo. So 10 o'clock was when the judo started, and I was eliminated by about 10 past 10. So,
wow.
It was brutal, to be honest. I think that was probably the hardest part of the whole thing, was just that it was over so quickly. It was years of building up, I guess, since Rio, and then you have such an intense sort of emotional high towards competing with all the build up, and you leave Australia, and once you get to the village, you're so excited, there's so much going on. And then it was just over so quickly. So I think the first couple of days especially were really tough. And then I was sort of able to just put it to the side to be able to support the two other girls in judo, Katerina and Aoife, 3 and 4 days after I fought. So I was just trying to be positive and be there for them. And then had a little bit of a break in Europe, maybe just 5 days. And then when I got back to Australia, I was pretty flat for probably 2 or 3 weeks, to be honest. Was able to catch up with friends and do a lot of stuff I hadn't done in some time, which was nice. But I sort of felt like every time I sat down, by myself, and things were quiet, there was nothing going on, that I was just crashed really quickly. So there was definitely, I guess they call it post-Olympic blues sort of thing. And I definitely felt that really strongly when I got back home. But I guess more recently, probably over the last 2 or 3 weeks, have been able to really enjoy the other things that I've had going on since I've got home, when I haven't been doing judo, and can start to look forward a little bit more.
What point did you arrive in Paris? How long before your match were you on the ground to kind of acclimatise yourself, village life, everything that you sort of touched on there?
So we moved in. I flew to Hungary and we were in Hungary for about 3 or 4 days just to acclimatize to Europe a little bit. And then we moved into the village 7 days before I fought. So the first probably 2 or 3 days were really fun, really exciting. You like get all your kit and you go around the village. Like we spent probably like 2 days like getting some bikes and riding around the village, which was fun. Like you do all the things that make the Olympics like cool, I guess. And then sort of like we had probably 3 or 4 days, at least before I was competing, where I could just like really focus on my training preparation, losing weight. So like wanted to sort of get all the high energy things out of the way at the beginning when I could enjoy them. And then
Try the muffins, right? Is it all about the muffins and things like that?
yeah. So at least for like the last couple of days it was like pretty quiet. We just like go to training, I'd come back, I'd rest a little bit. I caught up with my parents who came to Paris like a few days before I fought. So definitely not like too much for the couple of days before, but by the time it got to the competition, like I guess all of the nerves and excitement of the Olympics like had worn over. Like it felt like it was just a normal thing, which was good.
Because it's that unique aspect of it that you're kind of experiencing all that before the Olympics themselves have even begun, given that you're competing so early, right? It's not like you're a wrestler, like say, like Jaden Lawrence, who's literally competing, like on the second or the third last day. You know, you're doing this sort of beforehand, which did you find that helps in a weird way that like, you know, getting over that initial excitement, that level, because you then don't have the distraction of, oh, maybe I want to go watch the basketball, or Australia just won 3 gold today. That's a distracting thing in the back of your mind. Like you're not having that level of the competition having started distraction yet.
Yeah, it's a good question. Like I think because in every judo comp I've always fought the very first day. So it's just something I guess I've been a little bit used to, but you definitely feel the anticipation building up massively in the village, like especially for probably like the last 2 days when all the week 1 athletes are there, once the whole swimming team gets there, which is like another 70, 80 odd people. And you feel like there's so many people there and the anticipation of like the first day coming up and you're on that first day. So you definitely feel like this huge, like building energy in the Australian building, like with all the team, with all the staff, like all the staff have been there for so long, just waiting for the start of the competition, which is pretty cool. But I guess you also don't get maybe the high and low of watching other people compete as well. Like you don't, if you're somebody, I guess that takes a lot of motivation from watching other people compete. You don't have that. But I guess because I've always known I'm day one, I was day one in Rio, then I sort of had that, I guess, practice of not relying on anything else. Like, I guess if you can't get up and excited to compete at the Olympics, then I don't know what you're doing it for. Like, you don't really need any extra motivation.
And I can also imagine being your second Olympics, and given that your second Olympics took a little bit longer than you were probably anticipating, that, you know, you're an old hat at this now, Josh. You know, it's not sort of all of those like a, you know, Olympic debut sort of like, wow, there are the rings. I've got my uniform. There's pins. Oh, look, there's LeBron James. Like you've experienced all that now. So it's kind of like you can push that level of things aside.
Yeah, I think it's still cool. Like, I guess I don't know how many times I don't think it matters how many times you go to the Olympics. Like doing all that stuff for the first 2 days is still pretty cool every time. But I think then once it's time to actually get to the competition and just worry about competing, then you don't take in so many of like the external noise anymore. Like it was definitely easier on the competition day to like block out all the extra noise and just treat it like a normal comp with just a lot more on the line.
Did you find much difference in terms of Paris and Rio outside of some of the obvious ones, probably between how the two Olympics were run? But like, did you sort of get to the Olympic Village in Paris and go, oh, Rio did this better, or wow, this wasn't in Rio? Like, kind of, do you notice subtle little things like that kind of make this experience a little bit different to Rio?
I mean, Paris was like night and day better in terms of like organization and reliable transport and all those sort of things. But I think like Rio, being so young and not knowing what to expect, like everything was like, wow, this is so, like everything just sort of felt like this, wow, this is incredible. And I remember our coach Daniel, who had competed at 4 Olympics himself, was like saying to us, like, relax, like this is not as good as you're making it out to be in your head. Like it's cool, but like just relax a little bit. So I think coming into the village in Paris, like managing expectations a little bit, it was definitely really cool. Like I know there was a lot of like criticism from people about different things in the village that weren't good. And I mean, some things were probably fair, but like I had a great time, to be honest. I didn't have too much to complain about.
Cardboard beds, were they worse than like you didn't have cardboard beds back in Rio, I don't think, did you?
No, I mean, they also, I guess, like it made it sound like you were sleeping on like cardboard, but like it was on like a mattress custom like fitted to your body. So it wasn't like, yeah, it definitely wasn't like sleeping on like the floor of your high school or something. Like it was okay. I mean, if you are probably like a 6'6" basketball player, it was probably pretty average. And I don't blame you for being a bit grumpy about it. But I mean, I was all right.
Given that the judo team's so small, there's only 3 of you, and then, you compare that, as you said, to the swimmers, so many other teams are quite large. Does that mean that you sort of form relationships with some of the other smaller sports? I know obviously a lot of the combat sports are kind of, very close as it is, but are you finding yourself, bumping into someone like, Jen, our modern pentathlete, is a team of 1, or some of these other sports where there's only a couple of you and you can kind of all bond together, these smaller sports?
Yeah, I definitely think like the people that are you can't sort of like hide in your big group. Like it's not you can't just be like comfortable in your group of like 20 or 50 or 70 for some of the big sports. So you definitely make a little bit more effort to, I guess, integrate or meet other people. But so much is just dependent on like the timing that you're in the village. Like I didn't even see any of the boxers any of the wrestlers or the taekwondo athletes in the village. Like they came in after I already left. So definitely spent a bit of time with the boxers, like had known a lot of them already from, I guess, like our combat group. And then I guess meeting a lot of people that I had sort of traveled with before at Com Games a couple of years ago, Rio even from a while back. And then I guess everyone else you sort of just, you're fighting or competing for Australia. So like it's easy. You got a fair bit in common with most of the people that you're meeting day to day.
I can imagine hanging out with the boxers is fun. I can't imagine you're not hanging out with someone like Tara Moana and just like not having the time of your life, right? That guy's just always the life of the party.
Yeah, definitely. I don't think we don't have too much in common in terms of like having to make weight in the preparation for the competition. So I guess our experiences are quite different in the days leading up to competing. But yeah, he's a great dude. He's a lot of energy.
He's like double your size, right? Like 120 kilo plus, you're in the 60 kilo. Like, I mean, that's 2 Josh Katzes to 1 Tara Moana, right?
Yeah, reminded me of like hanging out with some of my friends in school that all played rugby. That's what it felt like.
And do you also find that, like, when you're sort of walking around the village and you're bumping into, say, somebody in a different country's team uniform, that it's always that fun aspect of like, what sport, like, and kind of like forming sort of friendships and sort of things like that with other countries' athletes as well?
Yeah, I think you play the game in your head a little bit. Like when you're sort of like walking to the dining hall and you see people from different countries, and first week as well, like it narrows down, I guess, the number of sports that are there. But yeah, there's some big range. Like you had, I think, first week, like basketball and rugby and volleyball, and then you had like gymnastics and diving as well. So there was a big range. I mean, even just in judo, like to go from, you got people that are over 100 kilos and people under 60, like my size or smaller than me. So, yeah, it was fun to sort of guess sometimes. And I guess you could always judge a little bit by like the way they walk. You can always sort of guess the fighting sports. I don't know. It's just a feeling, I guess, sometimes.
It's also just the vibe around judo in Paris itself. I mean, you've got Teddy, obviously, who's like, the GOAT, French national hero. And this sport is seen a lot differently in France, and I can imagine it was in Brazil. Obviously, Australia, it's sort of certain sports are seen in different lights. Like, did you feel that made things a little bit different for you, that you're in a country where judo is going to be a bit more of a spotlight on it than, say, it would be in Brazil?
I mean, probably like in the village, it didn't feel a massive difference, but definitely when we went like to the venues, and the judo venue was near the Eiffel Tower, so there was quite a lot of other sports in a similar area, and there was like a massive buzz for the judo competition in and around or anywhere near the venue, to be honest. And all over the news and stuff, the French judo team did really, really well. So
yeah,
there was a massive buzz for sure, and which made it cool too. Like it made you, I guess, appreciate how big the competition was, even though it's big already. Just having, I guess, so many people on the ground there to support was pretty cool as well.
I remember one of the days I came back, I can't remember what event it was, but it was sort of one of these like, I've got to get back, got to do some work. I'll go grab some McDonald's. It's all that's basically available. I remember walking into that restaurant, and it was one of the days when one of the team events was on in judo, and France were in one of the medal bouts. there was maybe 20 people in this McDonald's who were not even waiting for their order. They were just around this TV. And you get back to the main press center and they've got a big screen sort of on this level. Every journalist is just glued to this judo bout. I've never in my life, Josh, been somewhere where that many people are glued to judo. It was such a fantastic thing to experience because again, we just don't see that in Australia for judo.
And it doesn't get a massive like a lot of attention here anyway, but especially I guess because the French team was so successful and I think they won gold in the teams as well. So I guess any sport where the home country's doing well in, and if it's popular as well, then it would be like swimming, the swimming team doing amazing in a home games in Australia. Like people are going to go mental for the swimmers.
Do you get to bump into someone like Teddy much? I know he's not in your category. He's a little bit bigger than you, but I don't know if all judokas sort of follow in the same circles and he's sort of somebody you just bump in. Like, g'day, Teddy, how you doing?
I saw him at the competition. It's hard to miss him. He's like 6'8" or something. So he's he's hard to miss, but he I don't think we've definitely not sat down and had coffee too often.
Yet, Josh. I just want to say that yet. And obviously the night before you compete, having the opening ceremony, I can imagine, that's never really going to be an option, sadly, for you, but does that add to a bit of excitement, sort of hype you up a little bit to be able to maybe watch some of it in the village and kind of obviously the excitement that the Olympics have now officially started, they're here and I'm about to get to business tomorrow?
A little bit. Like what was pretty cool was I weighed in at 4:00 the day of the day before. So sort of after I'd weighed in and I was just hanging out with the coach and having something to eat and drinking a little bit, then I guess like the whole Australian team came down into sort of the lobby area and were all dressed up. They were all ready to get on the transport to go to the opening ceremony. So that was definitely really cool. There was probably like a 30 or 40 minute period where everyone was down the bottom, people taking a lot of photos, people like doing chants and stuff like that, which was really cool. So I guess it made you feel like you were in some way a part of the team going to the opening ceremony without actually having to go. But to be honest, like once I got back and the opening ceremony was on TV, like I was just like sipping on my Powerade and having some food. I had things that were more important in my mind at that moment.
Didn't want to put your jacket on and just kind of feel that for a little bit at all?
Yeah, people were asking me, do you want to get dressed up for the photos and stuff? I'm like, honestly, it was about 15 minutes after I'd weighed in. I was like, all I want to do is just lay down and have a Powerade. That's all that's on my list at the moment.
What are you generally like the night before a competition in terms of, say, like nerves and things like that? Getting to sleep, is it something that you struggle with, or is that part of just your regime? You're used to it. It's another competition. Go to bed. I'll be ready tomorrow.
Like normal competitions, I have like no nerves. I sleep fine all week. And the Olympics, I think I had slept like only like 5 or 6 hours for the probably 4 or 5 days leading up. It was just, I'd go to sleep fine and I'd wake up at some time in the morning and like first thing on my mind is like, oh man, like the Olympics is coming up in a couple of days. But then the actual night before I competed, I think I just like let go of all of it and just slept like a baby. So it was good. I wish I could say I lost because I was sleep deprived, but
it's the opposite. You got too much sleep. You needed all that sleep deprivation.
The day of, like I was good. Like I wasn't particularly nervous. I was just excited, I think, for the day once it actually came.
Who was your roommate in Paris?
So in my actual room, I didn't have a roommate until the day before I left. A guy from athletics moved in, but there was a few other people in my sort of apartment building. I just didn't have to share a room with anyone. So some of the guys from skateboarding, one of the guys from cycling. So a bit of a mix of everyone in the apartment. And then sort of just before I left, the athletics team moved in and a few of them popped in as well.
I always find that interesting. It's sort of a question we don't often ask is like, who are your roommates? Because I guess certain sports, I'm sure if there was another male judoka, you'd probably share with him. I'm sure you'd probably share with Nathan back in Rio. So it's kind of when you're by yourself in a certain sport, I guess it's just sort of you get what you're given or you get your own room. That's not too bad.
It was nice to have other people in the apartment so that I guess you have some people to chat to and I guess get rid of some of your nervous energy, like bouncing off some other people a little bit. But having like my own room was all right. Like I've had my own room plenty of times before, to be honest. Like I was only in there for an hour or so before bed every day before the competition anyway. So I wasn't spending too much time in there. It was all right.
You talk about the weigh-in the day before. At what point do you find out who your first round opponent is? So when are you finding out that you've got Andrea in that first match?
It was the day before the weigh-in. So I'd had about a day to sort of look at the draw, to think about it a little bit. I was like pretty comfortable with the draw. Like I guess I knew that I would have some challenges like with my knee anyway, but I figured for at least one or two matches, there was nobody I felt like I couldn't beat. Like I was confident to beat everyone, and he was somebody I felt really good to fight. So like it didn't really affect the way I sort of was mentally for the last like 2 days. It was all good. But funny, like when you go to the weigh-in in judo and they sort of bring everyone into this room like 10 minutes before the weigh-in starts. So there's literally just like 25 guys standing there in their undies for 10 minutes waiting for the weigh-in to start. And everyone's just looking at each other like, it's not like eyeing each other up, but it's just like everybody's just looking at each other knowing that like tomorrow, like we're all going to fight essentially.
Wow.
But at that moment, like no one has enough energy to do anything about it. Everyone's tired. Everyone's thirsty.
It's not boxing. You're not in each other's faces or
you're
things
just
like
waiting
that.
to step on the scales and get off and have a drink.
Wow. That's crazy. That kind of all like happens. Had you fought Andrea before? Has he been someone you come up against beforehand?
Training before, and like we were fairly like even at training, so I felt like it could go either way. If I fought really well, I felt like I could win. If I didn't fight well, I knew that he could beat me as well. So, but never in competition before, so that was the first time.
And in terms of like, you look at like the rankings and things on how that pans out. So if I'm not mistaken, you were 19th, he was 18th. So like basically there's one between you. So like, I mean, you on paper as an outsider, that looks very even, but I mean, is it that simple generally to look at it like that?
I mean, it's a simple way of looking at it, but I think there's probably maybe 2 or 3 guys at the Olympics that were probably like one tier above everybody else. And then those guys didn't even win gold anyway. So I really think there's probably like 85% of the people at the Olympics in judo like can all win a medal. Depends on who they match up against, depending on how they wake up in the morning, how much sleep they got maybe the night before. I don't know. But like I guess the ranking plays a little bit of a factor maybe mentally if like you feel like you're not as high and you're relying on that as confidence. But I think most of the people that qualify for the games like are pretty confident they can beat anyone there.
You mentioned about that feeling of you felt you're capable of beating anyone on the day. I mean, the knee and sort of that, like how was that feeling like that morning when you were getting to the venue? Like, was that mindset still there? Was there any niggles? Like kind of how was all that going into that match?
Yeah, I think I just felt a little bit like at ease that I knew that if something went wrong with my knee, like this is the one anyway. Like I guess in the qualifying tournaments, I was scared like if something happened, that would be it. Like I wouldn't be able to compete anymore. I wouldn't qualify for the games. And like being there in Paris, I was like, if something goes wrong, like I lose. Like that's it. Like I'm going to probably have surgery at some point anyway. So I was like sort of at peace knowing that like I was just going to fight as hard as I could and whatever happened with my knee happened. But I knew it wasn't going to be something that was going to stop me on the match. Like there was no way I was going to lose a match at the Olympics because like my knee hurt. Like I was either going to lose because the guy threw me or I was going to win. Like it wasn't going to be a factor.
That was why you were there, as you said. You sort of fought through all that pain and everything to get to that
Exactly.
point. So
exactly.
You know.
I'm like, I'm hardly going to use this as an excuse now that I'm actually here and this is like the day to fight. You only have to be good for one day.
Take us through the match, Josh. Take us through kind of what happened. I mean, reading your quote after the match, you said that you felt really good throughout the match, but you just made a little mistake at the end, ultimately go down 1-0. I'm not going to try and impress you with my judoka terminology like I did last time because it hasn't improved since the last time. But just take us through. Take us through.
What do you mean? You weren't watching the 7 days of judo? What's going on?
I was at the diving that morning. I was at the diving. Take us through kind of what happened.
I mean, I was the first match of the day, so they pretty much call you through like to the marshalling area about 15 minutes before the day starts to like make sure that once 10 o'clock hits, the first like matches are ready to go out. So I was sort of standing behind the curtain, just like in silence for about 10 minutes, just waiting, I guess, to go through. So there was a fair bit of head noise like during that 10 minutes. But like ultimately, like once the crowd was starting to get going, they were getting excited. I felt good, to be honest. Like it was just excited to be in this moment. Like it was sort of the moment that I'd thought about for a really long time, and like to was just like really present, I guess, in that moment, and fought really well, and fought like I guess as well as I could have with how much judo I'd done. Like got close to throwing him a couple times. He got close to throwing me a couple times. Match went to golden score, and then I got thrown, and that was it. So it was like over very quickly in my head. Like it was a 4.5, 5 minute match, and it honestly felt like I was 30 seconds. Like it went past so quickly. Like I wasn't tired. There was no other like physical feeling other than just like, oh shit, it's over now. Like, so yeah, it was like definitely disappointed, and probably a lot of the disappointment was just like wanting for it to continue more than it was like necessarily winning and losing. It was just like wanting the Olympics to still keep going. Like I didn't want it to be over yet, I guess, was like the feeling I felt in the straight after.
So you talk about then being thrown, and as I said in that interview, you said you made a mistake. What was there a particular mistake that you felt you made that led to being thrown for you being eliminated?
Yeah, I think like, I guess like part of our like strategy in the lead up to the fight was like try to avoid this certain position. And if you can avoid that, that was probably like what he was most dangerous to be able to throw me with, and had done that pretty well for the whole match. And as soon as golden score started, didn't avoid that position and pretty much got thrown straight away. So sort of the thing that we'd said not to do for the match. And the first time I didn't do it was when I got thrown. So it was frustrating, but it's a unique, I guess, experience, the Olympics. Like most tournaments, you come off and your coach probably sprays you a little bit and tells you all the things you could have done better and what you need to work on to improve and all that sort of stuff. And the Olympics is just not really like that. Like, I guess in that moment, there's not really anything you need to improve. Like there's not a next time to worry about yet. So your coach is just pretty much there like to give you some support, and the rest of the team is pretty much there to just like make sure you're okay, I guess. Like no one's yelling at you, no one's telling you to do this better, this better. You just like a bit sad, to be honest. So it's a bit of a depressing place, the warm-up area straight after a lot of the first round matches, but it's the tough reality of the sport.
The great photo that, I mean, in hindsight, not great because you've just been eliminated, but it really is a powerful image, is the photo of you where you're just on your knees, kind of back on, and you can see, I'm assuming is your coach sort of in the distance, sort of looking, and just, you can just tell the raw emotion that's clearly sitting with you there, even though you can't see your face in that photo. I mean, can you even begin to describe what is going through your head at that moment when you're just kind of sitting there and reflecting and realizing that, as you said, this is all over in 10 minutes?
Yeah. I mean, I'm probably glad it didn't show my face, because I don't think it would have been the best angle of me at that exact moment after losing. But I think you just sort of sit there in like, it's a little bit of disbelief. It's a little bit of like question, like, did that just happen? Like, what's going on? And then like you get yourself back to your feet, and the referee awards the win to the other person. And I guess like by the time you even sort of process what's going on, you're back out in the warm-up mat by yourself, which is it's like a bit of just a crazy like sequence of events, how much happens in like a 10-minute span. Like and I guess the warm-up mat at the judo it's got all the winners and all the losers in a couple meters from each other. So it's definitely like this really strange place during the day, as like half the people come, like every match that happens, someone comes out and they're over the moon, their dream's still going, and the other person's like sitting there in tears. Like it's a pretty wild place to look around across the span of a day.
And of course, there's that part of you then that still has to keep competition on the mind, because there is that chance still that you will have to go again in the repechage, right? Is that sort of
it's in
not
judo
from the first round?
Yeah, if you lose before the quarterfinals in judo,
right? Okay,
that's it. So I guess everybody knows the reality of like the first two rounds, that like if you lose, this is over. So
that's it. Okay.
I guess like that would be really hard too, is like trying to hold on to that little glimpse of hope. But I guess having some hope probably eases the burden a little bit of losing. Whereas like in ours, you just know after in the first two rounds that you win this or it's over. So yeah, you know what's at stake straight away.
This is where we've talked so much about repechage across the years on this show, and it's sort of, we've come around on it, but like, I'm thinking of someone like Leon in the taekwondo, Jaden in the wrestling, like they both get eliminated, but then they both have to come back for repechage bouts. And it's like, how do you even begin to try and maintain that level of, oh, I've got to stay in this mindset. I'm so annoyed that I've just lost, but there might be a sneaky way that I can still be in this competition.
Yeah, I'm envious. Like I wish that was the case in judo as well. And I mean, to be honest, the guy I lost to lost his next match anyway. So I don't think really in any repechage system, I probably would have come back anyway. But I think when you know that that's the case, you just like your options are either like get it together and have a chance to win a bronze medal, or like you get nothing. So I think like when they're your two options, like you sort of just have to force yourself to get yourself together.
Do you allow yourself more than a moment, a day, 2 days, however long it takes to just go back to the village, cry, punch the shit out of some things, turn some music up loud, go fill your plate up at the village with the worst possible, like, do you allow yourself kind of that moment where I feel like shit and I'm going to do what it takes right now to just wallow in this and have a pity party, so to speak, Josh?
For sure. I mean, I think you have to let it out. It's like in whatever your vice is, whatever your way of getting it out is, you have to, because it just eats you up otherwise. And I mean, I did that for a couple of days and I took myself away from the village for a little bit just so that I wasn't like being too negative around the girls that were still to compete. Like if I was with them, I wanted to at least be positive and like supportive for them. So definitely for like 2 days, I didn't really see them a whole lot. I was just like spending most of my time like with my brother and with my family a little bit. But then I guess like it doesn't go anyway. So like eventually you have to just figure out a way to like keep going about your life. Like, and those feelings like take a lot longer than like one meal of junk food for you to get over it. So like that helps a little bit. And if it helps, then great. And I guess like it doesn't ever really go. So you just like have to learn to deal with it, I guess.
And what is your vice? You said everyone's got this sort of vice. Like, is it, eating a bunch of junk food, like just hanging with the family? Like, did you sneak away somewhere specifically in Paris to kind of just completely take you? Like, what was your vice to get that out of your system?
Yeah, I mean, like I was like smashing a load of food and I remember I had a couple drinks and I remember though, like I hadn't had like a drop of alcohol in probably like 9 months. So like the first beer I had like nearly knocked me over. So that like slowed me down a little bit and brought me back down to earth, to be honest. So going like out to a Paris nightclub definitely wasn't on the cards for me. But it's honestly for me, like for the couple of days was just like spending a bit of time with my family. I think it's like such an emotional period that you just sort of want to be with people that like are there to, then there's no other like agenda. They're just there to like help you. Like that's it. Like they came to Paris to watch me, to support me. So it was like nice to just spend a couple days with them. And then I felt like after like a couple days, like I was in like good enough headspace that I could like come back with the rest of the team and like be able to support them for their days of competition as well.
Which ultimately the whole judo team probably didn't achieve obviously what was hopeful, but I mean kind of to be able to support them and what they went through and everything too, and kind of, I guess you'd experienced that disappointment a few days earlier. So kind of like, well, I mean, probably a dumb question to ask us, but what was that vibe from the whole team sort of leaving Paris besides the disappointment, of course?
Yeah, it's tough. Like, I mean, they were there for me on the day I fought. So like, and we've been through a lot together over a really long time, like traveled together for probably like 8-9 years now as like with me and those two girls, and Nathan was there as well. So we definitely spent a lot of time together and it was good to be there for each other regardless of what the outcome was going to be. And it was tough. Like the day that Aoife fought and Aoife lost, we all left the next morning, or everyone was going their separate ways the next day. So we sort of like had dinner together that night, and it was like a little bit of a way of everyone just like being grateful that this was going to be the last time that we were going to be together for some time, maybe ever. Like you never know, I guess, like how it's going to go. So we had like a nice dinner together with the girls and the coaches and the extra staff that were in Paris as well. So that was like a nice dinner that I guess everyone put on their happy face for one night and just sort of like got over it, I guess, for that couple of hours, but it was tough. Like, um, saying goodbye to everyone, that it was like, I guess at that point I'd had 5 days, so I was okay. But the girls had had 1 day and no days. Like that was the
Mm.
night that Aoife fought. So um, they definitely didn't have as long to process it as I had, and their expectations were probably higher than mine, to be honest, as well. So um, yeah, I think it was tough. Like it was a tough vibe when we all left, to be honest. But I guess we all just let each other be. Everyone went to different countries to do a little bit of travel and just like let each other enjoy some time away from each other, I guess, as well for a couple of days.
Was there ever a thought for yourself that you might stick around to kind of relish the rest of the Olympics, hang around to the closing ceremony, watch some other events, things like that at all?
I'd thought about it. I guess just the fact that judo's so early that it would have been staying like another 10 or 11 days to get to the closing ceremony. And to be honest, like I wanted to come home. Like I think I would have enjoyed staying in Paris for maybe another 2 or 3 days to at least get out to a couple of other sports. But um, I was sort of keen as well after like, I guess, starting to have the emotional come down straight after competing. I was like sort of happy to get out of the Olympic bubble, I suppose, and just have a couple days like little holiday in Europe and then come back to Australia. And as hard as it was, like coming back to reality, I guess, like in Sydney straight away, it was a good thing. I was glad I did.
One thing I love that you wrote on your Instagram, you sort of obviously took a bit away before you posted a really good post about sort of your journey. And this part that you wrote in great post, you said, "Without a doubt, my result, the 2024 Olympic Games was devastating, and this disappointment will sit with me again for 4 more years. But I am so incredibly proud that after everything that was put in front of me of these past 8 years, I could wear the green and gold and represent Australia. Once again, I have never felt so much support, and for that, I am truly grateful." I mean, to turn it into some sort of positive, Josh, with everything that you overcame just to get to Paris, and now obviously overcoming, more on this injury, I can imagine it just sparks that hunger more. That again, there's unfinished business for you, I can imagine, to push towards another Olympic Games or multiple Olympic Games. Who knows what's in your future?
For sure. Like I think trying to put like, I guess selfishly how I felt about myself aside, like straight after, like I felt there was so much support, like so many messages that it took me like weeks to get back to that. I was just like really, really grateful for all the support that I'd had just to get there. But then once I was there as well, and I guess like in the lead up, a lot of people say like, "Oh, you're gonna go again, you're gonna go again." I'm like, man, I haven't even been this time yet. And I guess you never really know exactly how you're gonna feel until you step off the mat at the games. Like I could honestly say like I feel like I'm probably gonna want to keep going, but like if I come off the mat in Paris and I'm like, that's me done, then that's me done. Like I guess you never really know how it's gonna feel, but I definitely felt coming off that I was like, nah, there's like more still to do. And like whether eventually you get to the Olympic medal is like obviously the dream, but I definitely felt like there's still more left. So I knew I had to get my knee done. It's going to be a little while to recover, but once this gets sorted, like I'm definitely pretty keen to like have another crack in 4 years.
Because it's that question I hate asking Olympians, particularly. I mean, we're recording this barely, 6 weeks after the Olympics are done with. Like, oh, you're going to keep on going because there's still that emotion sitting with you, Josh. I mean, it's still very, very fresh, but obviously there's a level of desire in you, sort of as we're touching on there, that, the next 4 years and it goes by so quickly, right? Like, I mean, I can't imagine. I mean, we're talking 8 years after your Olympic debut. That was 8 years ago. I mean, in 8 years' time, it's Brisbane, Josh. You could be there. Like, I mean, it's sort of it goes by so quickly.
Don't say that. Don't put that out there.
Always going to put it out there, right? That's not long. But I mean, it goes by so quickly, and but before you know it, we're going to be talking before LA.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think I'm glad you're asking me like now, as opposed to like the week after you compete, when still some people go, "Oh, like, what are you going to go to another one?" And I'm like, man, like, at least let me deal with like wallow in my own pity for a couple of weeks first. But yeah, I think I know for sure that like I'm not done yet. So whether that means going another 4 years to an Olympics, whether that means like going another year and then realizing I don't want to do it anymore, like you never know for sure. But all I know is that like I'm not done yet. So it'll be sometime next year I come back with my knee, and then I'm pretty sure, like if you ask me gun to my head today, what are you going to do? Like I'm going to put everything into having one more crack at LA in 4 years.
The other thing too to look at in that cycle, obviously you've got, all the events, the key events in the judo cycle, but you look at those major sort of multi-sport events, Commonwealth Games being one that I know we talked about a lot of the time when we had you on the show a few months ago, but we're sort of in that purgatory right now where we think Glasgow are going to have them, but then we also don't know what sport's going to be there because they're going to be scaled back from Birmingham, so we don't even know if judo is going to be there. So does that make
judo wasn't initially going to be in the Victorian one? So
right, of course,
I guess I'd sort of accepted that it wasn't going to be in the Com Games. So I guess if it gets added back into it, that would be
bonus.
That would be amazing. But I'd sort of like already accepted that wasn't going to happen. So like a decision to keep going is like centered mostly around like the Olympics. It's not really trying to rely on Com Games. And to be honest, like I did the Com Games and I didn't win gold. Like I'd love to be able to have another crack and try to win gold, but the one that like means a lot more to me would be having another crack at the Olympics for sure.
And LA, right? Like, Paris is obviously special, don't get me wrong, but Snoop Dogg, Tom Cruise, like all these sort of people, you're going to be hanging out with them more so than you did in Paris.
Yeah, I don't think I'll be leaving the village straight away in LA. I think, or if I get kicked out of the village, I'll be staying in America for a little while. I think that's too good an opportunity to pass up staying there for a bit.
Absolutely. It's at the same place I had the village, I believe, from 1984 at the university there. So I think they're going to really crack along there. Do you sort of find yourself sort of through that period when you leave Paris and you sort of you're having that break in with your family and then you come back to Australia? Do you kind of avoid the Olympics? Like, do you sort of not want to watch them and kind of just completely distance yourself from them as well?
It's a good question. I think it's like letting yourself take it in if you want to. Like, towards I guess the end of the second week, I was flicking it on at nighttime and like watching a couple of the events that were on before bed, but like definitely not like being consumed by it. I think it's still really cool to like watch and like be inspired by like other Australian athletes. And I think it's still really cool to be able to appreciate what other people are doing, even if you just got to take yourself out of it. Like ultimately it's like such an amazing event that comes around every 4 years that like if you just feel sorry for yourself for 2 weeks and then you don't get to appreciate all these other things that are happening. So, I definitely like took in a little bit of the Olympics after I competed, after I left Paris anyway. But definitely not loads. Like it was enough that was like checking in to see what was going on, but I definitely wasn't like taking it in on like social media and other stuff like that as well. I sort of took a bit of a break from that side of things.
No matter what is said, you were a member of the most successful Australian Olympic team of all time. So,
I'd like to be able to say I contributed to that tally in some way, but hopefully my participation inspired a couple of medals anyway.
Well, on the combat side of things, Charlie and Caitlin brought home a couple of bronze on the boxing side. So, that's you were hanging out with them before they competed. So that counts for something.
Yeah, they definitely I must be owed something like some percentage of their winnings or whatever it is, like surely.
Yeah, exactly. Are you much of a souvenir guy, Josh? So like, do you sort of keep like, through Rio and Paris, like you're keeping like accreditation tight, like letters you get, like all the free stuff in the village? You have a bunch of freeges that are just like sitting behind you or something like are you that type of guy that takes stuff from the Olympics?
I have so much stuff still sitting in like a bag from Rio and the Com Games that like was once going to get given to somebody and then I just probably forgot. But honestly, I give away so much stuff. Like you get a lot of really cool stuff from the Olympics and I've given like so many gifts out to people. Like I want a couple of t-shirts and like a tracksuit maybe, but I don't need like, you get so much stuff that is just like, I don't need it. So it's like really cool to get it at the time and like you wear the most like crazy stuff in the village because you can literally get away with wearing whatever you want.
Yeah.
But once I come home, like it's pretty cool to like be able to give like little tokens of like memorabilia to other people. Like they appreciate it and love it as well. And they don't have 1,000 of them. So it's cool to give away some stuff, but honestly, like you just can't get through it all. And who am I ever going to give a gift of like a fluoro green puffer jacket too. You sort of just stuck with some stuff.
Well, I found the biggest thing was the amount of bags they gave you, right? So you get like
Yeah.
the suitcase and the lovely July bag, but then do I need a bum bag? Do I need a hip bag? Do I need a back? Like I've still got so many bags, which again, I'm just like cherishing every piece of Australian team kit I've got, but I don't need like 5 different types of. I barely need one bag, Josh.
Honestly, my like hard shell suitcase I've had since Rio, my Olympic bag in Rio, has been on absolutely death's door for like the last like 3 years. Like it's held together with strapping tape, like all 4 wheels.
Wow.
The thing's got holes in it, and I was just like holding on. I'm like, I need to qualify just so I get another bag. And then they gave a duffel bag instead of like a hard case suitcase.
Oh
So
no.
I'm gonna have to bite the bullet now and buy a new bag. Like it's tough goings now.
I'll just keep going to LA. The reason to go to LA is to get a better
Yeah,
suitcase.
honestly, it won't even last like one more domestic trip, let alone 4 years.
Wow, that's crazy. And also, like I know Olympians get a phone. Now, like, the thing that it's great. Don't get me wrong. You're getting a free phone. You're never going to say no. But like, unless you are like, similar to your bag, you're desperate. You need a new phone. All of a sudden, you find yourself with an extra phone. Like, is that a gift you give away, or is this better than your other phone? Like, I mean, I'm not trying to shit on Samsung here, but I'm just intrigued what you do with the phone.
That's all right. I shoot on Samsung all the time. That's fine. But honestly, it's a huge life commitment to go from iPhone to Samsung, and
Right? Yeah.
I'm not ready to make that commitment, to be completely honest. So, yeah, I think that's a really good gift, but I'll probably end up whoever wants to buy that off me. I don't know if I've got anyone that needs a gift so nice. So
Save it for someone really special that deserves
Yeah.
It's funny. I randomly was on eBay the other day, and I just so happened to go down a rabbit hole. And I think I was just looking up like, can you buy like old Australian team shirts? Like I got a Sydney 2000 volunteer shirt. It's great. But happened to find somebody's store, and they're selling a bunch of stuff. Now, I'm guessing they're a former Olympian because they've got stuff from past Olympics. And I'm like, okay, clearly, you must be an Olympian or involved in the team. But I just want to say some of the prices that they're selling some of those pieces of uniform for, I'm like, good luck, because I don't know if anybody's willing to pay that amount of money for that. But hey, there's an option down the track, Josh. Maybe you could track that person down and start a store or something like that.
Honestly, you got to be realistic. Like the Olympics is epic. Like, don't get me wrong. And like, if you have something from Paris for the next year, people will like do anything for it. But like in 2 years from now, like no one cares anymore.
Yeah.
Like, It sounds bad, but
it's true, because that's the thing. This is some kit from like Athens and Beijing. Like, I'm an Olympics geek, Josh. Trust me, I will buy stuff, but not for the price they were selling.
Yeah,
like, I'm talking $1,000 for
that's
an
crazy.
Athens 2004 jacket. Now, if you've ever seen what Australia wore in the opening ceremony in 2004, it was fucking ugly, and I'm not paying $1,000 for it. So I was intrigued to see who that was selling that.
Well, if you want an opening ceremony blazer from Rio, I'll give you a much better price than $1,000. So.
That's good to know. That's good to know. So obviously recovery now for you for a few months and everything along those lines. I mean, all jokes aside with the recovery, like what does it specifically involve outside of, maybe resting on a couch? Is there lengthy rehab sessions, follow-up visits to a doctor? Kind of like, how strenuous is the next few months for Josh Katz?
So the first month is pretty quiet. When I woke up from surgery, I was met with the nice surprise from my surgeon that I'd actually done a fair bit more damage than what the scans had shown or what I'd thought from the scans. So the first month is pretty quiet. Just a bit of rest, to be honest, and some physio. I won't be doing anything too crazy. And then I think like probably start hitting rehab fairly hard, probably by like November, December. And it's so far away that I haven't really thought about like a return to competition, but sort of like the rough timeline I'm getting is like a 9 to 10 months would be best case probably. So especially like being at the start of an Olympic cycle and not needing to rush back to start qualifying or competing again straight away, that if it means taking an extra month or two to get back and that is frustrating at the time, but it means that like I'm healthier over the next 4 years, then I can take that. That's all right. It's a very different approach to coming back from the last couple of injuries I've had that cut down what the surgeon recommends by 6 weeks, but yeah, if it means like a little bit longer rest now to be healthy on the back end, then that's a price I can take.
Because I was going to say there must be a part of you which is just like, for the life of God, can I go a certain amount of time without an injury? Like there's always got to be that level of, 1 year without an injury. Let's go. Come on.
Touch wood. Yeah. It was funny. Like, I guess because I had competed in Paris, which is like the pinnacle of judo, like competing at the Olympics, like in my head, I was like, no, my knee's fine. Like it's all good now. And then you try to go like back to daily activities and I can't do them. And I'm like, okay, well, I do still need surgery. Like just because I competed with a lot of tape and a lot of painkillers doesn't mean my knee's fine. Doesn't mean my knee's fine. Like it does need to get fixed. So I'd sort of convinced myself that I was good and then quickly realized that I wasn't quite good yet. So we've got a year to like straighten everything out so that we got 3 years smooth sailing.
Grease and oil change, right? Like you got to, get a bit of a touch up and freshen up. And
we're putting it out there. Once it's out there, it's in the universe. It's a lock.
We're learning a lot on this show, Josh, about universe and putting things out there. That while we used to be quite crap and be a jinx, we're actually pretty good on the opposite of things now. So, I'm just saying, if we're speaking to you in a couple of years' time, I think things are going to be in a much more of the positive column, perhaps. So,
I think I've said that like 2 or 3 times. I'm really like coming across as this like manifesting kind of guy, but I'm hoping that you bring some sort of power to me because I haven't put too much into the universe before today, to be honest.
Well, 22 medals, I believe Team OTP got in Paris, if I'm remembering that off the top of my head, having gone into
and 1 participation.
Hey, well, that's the key one that we care about, right? Like the participation with it. We used to kind of avoid talking to our guests about previous success rates because we were a bit of a jinx on athletes going into the Olympics. They never did well, but now it's the opposite. So, just to put that out there, that's what we do here.
So if I go the opposite, like if I talk about my not success, that like leads to more success down the line.
100%.
Perfect.
I mean, we like to also put it out there that we discover a lot of people on this show. All right. The 2 that comes to mind, one of these you wouldn't have heard of, Ali Ludic. She's a Canadian ski jumper. Now, in the lead up to Beijing, Canada had never medaled in ski jumping ever. She was part of a team that won a medal, and she's since gone on to win world championships. She's one of the best ski jumpers in the world. The other one, you've definitely heard of the next person I'm about to mention, Raygun, good friend of this show, been on the show multiple times in the lead up. Now she's the most famous Australian Olympian in the world. So, I'm just saying, Josh, that come on this show, success will follow you.
I thought maybe like by getting thrown in the first match, like I could go viral by losing that way, but apparently it just didn't get picked. Apparently the media just came late that day or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know, right? You think I'd be able to help out with that. Josh, it's always a pleasure to have you on the show and obviously learn about everything that you got to talk about. And obviously Paris maybe didn't go quite the way you were hoping it to, but no matter what happened, you've done Australia proud. You did so well to get back to a second Olympics. You're now officially a 2-time Olympian. That can never be taken away from you. But we're going to keep a close eye on you for the next few years and get you back on and lead up to LA. And then after LA, with Australia's first ever judo gold medal.
Sounds good.